Confucius stated in 450 BC, "Tell me and I will forget, show me and I may remember, involve me and I will understand." Experimental learning is a learning theory that is learner-centered and operates on the premises that individuals learn best by experiences. A good way to describe this theory is learning by doing. Experimental learning thus have the learner directly involved with the material being studied instead of thinking and just talking about that material. It uses participants' own experiences and their own reflections about that experience, rather than lecture as a primary approach to learning. Experimental learning theory allows for the generation of understanding and allows for transfer of skills and knowledge. It builds on experiences. That is especially important in adult learning because simply by living, adults bring a wealth of experience to every learning situation they face. Experimental learning theory is a holistic approach. Experimental learning theory is most effective when learning have goals that motivates, which is a common characteristic in adult learning. Transformational learning is about dramatic, fundamental changes in the way we see ourselves and the world in which we live. This theory involves two kinds of learning, which are instrumental and communicative learning. Instrumental learning focuses on learning through task-oriented problem solving and determination of cause and effect relationships. It helps the learner to achieve their short-term objectives, such as improving their work performance. With communicative learning, it is involved with how others communicate their feelings, needs, and desires with another person. It helps the learner become a critical, autonomous, and responsible thinker. The goal of transformational learning is to change the frame of reference. The frame of reference is a collective of the assumptions through which we interpret and understand the world we live in. A frame of reference includes two elements, the habit of the mind and a point of view. Habit of the minds are always affected and shaped by the assumptions we build on cultural, social, educational, and political codes, which a specific point of view is originated from the habit of the mind. When people begin to critically reflect and examine their predetermined assumptions and beliefs, they will become more open, inclusive, reflective, and willing to change. However, every experience cannot cause transformation. Self-directed learning is at the heart of adult education because of its learner-centered focus and the lessons that can be learned from life experience. Self-directed learning is an example of informal learning. It is defined as the process which individuals take on the responsibility for their own learning process by diagnosing their personal learning needs, setting goals, identifying resources, implementing strategies, and evaluating the outcome. There are three main categories involved with self-directed learning: the goal, the process, the learner. In an adult learning content, the goals are generally self-determined, as is the process. Self-directed learning can be enhanced with facilitation, particularly through providing resources. Motivation is the key to success. Self-directed learning experiences. Adult learners are motivated by the opportunity to gain new skills, knowledge, attitudes to improve their work performances, improve family life and health, enjoy arts and physical recreation, participate in a hobby, or simply increase their intellectual attitude. They integrate with daily routine, triggered by internal or external motivation and, and linked to others in learning. Active learner, where the learner do more than simply listen to a lecture. Learners are doing something, including discovering, processing, and applying information. Active learner has two basic assumptions: that learning is by nature an active endeavor, that different people learn in different ways. Research shows greater learning occurs when learners engage in active learning. It is important to remember, though, that lecture does have its place and that you should not do active learning without content or objective. The element of active learning are talking and listening, writing, reading, and reflecting. Learners are involved in more than just listening. Less emphasis is placed on transmitting information and more on developing learner skills. Learners are involved in high order thinking. Learners are engaged in activities, and greater emphasis is placed on the learner's exploration of their own attitudes and values. What I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I understand. Social learning theory focuses on the learning that occurs within a social content. It considers that people learn from one another, including such concepts as observational learning, imitation, and modeling. People can learn by observing the behaviors of others and the outcomes of those behaviors. Learning can occur without a change in behavior. Behaviorist says that learning has to be represented by a permanent change in behavior. In contrast, social learning theorist says that because people can learn through observation alone, their learning may not necessarily be shown in their performance. Cognition plays a role in learning. Over the last 30 years, social learning theory has become increasingly cognitive. It is its interpretation of human learning. The awareness and expectation of future reinforcement can have a major effect on the behavior that people exhibit. Social learning can be considered a bridge or a transition between the behaviorist learning theory and the cognitive learning theories. Learning contracts are both a teaching strategy and assessment tool used to encourage self direct learning. They are negotiation between the learner and the teacher, which help define what each party responsibilities are. Learning contracts allow for shared responsibility of the planning and learning experiences. This allows for the learner to actively participate in the learning process from start to finish. The learner begins to feel the need to learn because the learning objective become their own personal goals. In turn, the learner begins to take responsibility and control over their own learning. In this way, they are an effective teaching strategy in helping the learner become motivated and responsible for their own learning. Learning contracts provide flexibility to the teacher to meet the individual needs of the learner. They allow the learner to work at a different level according to their own knowledge. They are not forced to do a necessary task, but rather negotiate their work on what they need to learn. This in turn provides them with the motivation to reach a goal instead of feeling that they're doing needless work or learning things that they already know. It is clear that Malcolm Knowles have brought considerable attention to the field of adult education. If the andragogical approach is applied correctly, it can make a positive impact on the adult learner. The andragogical model focuses on education of adults and based on the following: that adults need to know why they need to learn something. As adults, We maintain the concept of responsibility for our own decisions in life. We enter into educational activity with a greater volume of experiences. We have a readiness to learn things in order to cope effectively with life situations. As I close, I would like to thank you for joining me as we journey through Malcolm Knowles' theory of andragogy and the different learning theories on how adults learn. As an adult learner, we want to know what and why we learn. It is only through collaboration that we are able to facilitate learning with each other. As we continue to move forward in our endeavor of attaining a doctoral degree, I hope that some additional insights on andragogy and the different learning theories. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I will address them at this time.